So let me hit the record button and hi, this is Keith Weaver with the Top Executive Strategy Podcast, where CEOs, COOs, and business owners share strategies for better success. This is 6 questions in 9 minutes because the best strategies are concise business advice. And so we're going to get right to our guest today. So with question number 1, tell us in a few sentences, what's the best thing about being a business leader? Sorry, let's start over.
Mulligan.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, that's what the editors are for, right? They clear all that out. So, all right. Hi, this is Keith Weaver with the Top Executive Strategy Podcast, where CEOs, COOs, and business owners share strategies for better success. This is 6 questions in 9 minutes because the best strategies are concise business advice. And so we're going to be concise and get right with our guest today. And question number 1, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Keith. My name is Carter Pochynok. I am the founder of a little startup called Pochynok Sound Labs, but we go by Mobius. And we deal with a couple interesting, seemingly unrelated things. We're a user-driven record label that's designed to take advantage of streaming to actually increase artists' profits rather than cut into it the way it has over the past couple decades. And we also deal in getting multidimensional audio technology to be more widespread and more advanced in its use cases than you see in the implementations being marketed right now. I fit into that as a professional musician myself, working on my debut record with Billy Sherwood from Yes, Sylvia Massey, who did Tool, I think she did System of a Down, Johnny Cash, and I've got a couple guest stars and such from groups like Pink Floyd and Morphine. So I'm really, really pleased to have that staff around me for my first record. And I'm really looking forward to proving with my own music that my distribution method works and is scalable for the average musician to treat themselves as a business rather than just a band.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We think of modern technology in a lot of different arenas, but music and art isn't probably one of them that we think of, and that's your big focus. So very interesting field that you're in.
Yeah, it's one day I am the artiste, and then the next day I've got to be a completely uncreative software engineer focusing on artificial intelligence problems and how that works in the context of sound.
Well, it doesn't get boring, probably. So
you'd be surprised.
So, second question: tell me, what's the best thing about being a business leader?
I think it's just the freedom. For me personally, it's the knowledge that whether I end up a success or a failure in my goals, it's ultimately my choices and not an incompetent boss's choices that got me there. I've had a lot of friends who, I didn't go the traditional high school, college, graduate school, then start a company route. Definitely not a product of any Ivy League. I have friends that have gone that route though, and seeing some of their frustrations has really kind of reaffirmed that one, you don't need a degree to be in the company of geniuses. Mentors can do that for you. So seek mentors, not degrees, is kind of my personal approach. That's, all of my friends, all the people in my life, they have something to teach me. They're there for a reason. They're there on their own individual merits, not just proximity. And that's been really big, really. And that's kind of a second caveat to that, is the people I've gotten to know. I've people tell me, never meet your heroes. You're going to be disappointed, but that has not been my experience. Some of my heroes have been incredibly gracious to me, and uh, the fact that I have their help in getting my own career off the ground is something that's, I don't forget. That's in the back of my mind all the time. Is just like, put the work in, do it the right way. I only get one debut record and their name is going on it. So make something that lives up to the name they've established, if nothing else.
That's really cool. All right. Question number 3. I hear from other business leaders that their people strategy in running their business is often more complicated, difficult than the actual business strategy of running their business. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And not even from my experience trying to get my company off the ground as much as my experience working for other people. There's nothing that drives high turnover more than a tyrannical boss. uh, and I think emotional intelligence and soft skills are critically undervalued by a lot of people. And what, that's one of the nice things about the music industry is we're a bunch of creatives. So there's a lot more, there's a little bit more leeway when it comes to personal issues, just because the nature of the music industry, personal and professional are blurred sometimes in the way you approach things. With good and bad, double-edged sword. But one of the good things is it's not like, say, engineering, where you're not really going to see, you're gonna, it's a clinical field, it's a very empirical field, and you're going to see very cold clinical empirical discussion as a result of that. I think it's just a product of human nature, but it's one we need to be cognizant of. And it's why I like blending engineering and music into one career like this, is because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get clinical efficiency on one hand, but you get creativity and the ability to approach problems from unique angles on the other hand.
That's some really cool insight. Well, great. So question number 4, what strategy would you like to share with other business leaders?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to call myself a business leader just yet. We're still working on round 1 of funding, getting to that demo day seed stage. And I actually think that kind of gives me a unique opportunity to speak here, just because I know there are a lot of other, basically kids my age trying to get a business off the ground and finding themselves lost either. And I think the big thing is it comes down to like financial strategy. That's actually why I started my company, is to teach musicians how to function as a business. Start an LLC for your band, get business banking, keep track of your accounts and your write-offs. I mean, if you have a business filed for your band, every new piece of gear you buy is now tax deductible as long as you play enough shows to show you're making money, right? It's things. And so there's all sorts of ways where, even if you're not rich, like I'm a head busser at a fine dining restaurant for my day job, right? When I'm not being a rock star, I'm basically a servant for people who have money to spend $50 on pasta, right? um, and I'd say, like, be proud of that. Take advantage of that period in your life. And the biggest thing is have multiple accounts, right? Even if you don't have a business yet, you just have an idea. Start a business bank account, right? Get something, if nothing else, as an incentive to split your paychecks and say, okay, this goes to rent and food and gas this month. This goes to expendable income or whatever. And the rest of this is for my business. And not only is that going to make your accounting easier, it's going to make it easier, to stay motivated, to have that little flotilla of cash to say, oh, I need office supplies, or I need, in my case, I need some music gear, or I need a CNC machine to build my own music gear with, or whatever it is. It's splitting your accounts up and, yeah, just divvying your money appropriately be surprised how far that can get you, even making, as little as I make, solidly working class. And, when I started this business, when I first got some of these big producers to agree to do a record with me, I was actually homeless. So, um, there's, if nothing else, I'd say that's kind of the testament to the value of splitting your cash. You know, if you can manage getting out of homelessness and starting a business at the same time, you've got an excellent start to whatever goal you have, because it's not an easy push.
Well, you have some good insights there, and you're right. There's a lot of businesses that start out as a hobby and then they try to make it, a full-blown business. And that's a hard transition, making it from a hobby to a business, and being organized and really committing 100% to it to start that business and get going. And so a lot of good insights that you have there. I really like that. Question number 5, what other successful business owners like yourself maybe would you like to acknowledge, do a shout out to, or you think might be good on the podcast?
That's a great question. There's a there's a few really good ones. I'd have to say the person I'd have to give the most credit to, probably one of the major reasons I ended up being where I am, is another Utah County guy like yourself, Caleb Chapman. I don't know if you've heard of the Caleb Chapman Sound House or not. They're a phenomenal program. What they do is they take a few hundred students each year. Um, they'll audition them. I think my year they took, out of the 600 kids, they took like 60 kids, something like that. And they made these bands out of those kids. And then they actually take those bands to professional gigs. And so that's how I got my start in the scene of professional music, and knowing for sure that I wanted to do that, because through Caleb's program, I was a 17-year-old kid gigging with Grammy winning musicians, you know? And I was a bit of an outcast in high school. I was always a bit of a weirdo, still am. I believe you have to be a good artist to some extent. Um, but what I would do is, rather than stick with the buddy system they had assigned us, I would kind of split off from the groups, and I would go and, get to know some of the big bands that we were opening for and make friends that way. And to this day, a lot of the people I met that way are still my friends and mentors, uh, people I turn to for advice or just to talk to and catch up. Um, so I would definitely give a big shout out to Caleb, because without him, I don't think I would have had the understanding of like the culture of professional musicians, to be able to, write an email proposal to get the bassist from Yes to do my record with me.
Well, I wish we had more time, because I'm sure there are a ton of people that you have contact with and just know from the music industry. And definitely Caleb would be one that we'd like to maybe, you know, connect with and see if he can be on the podcast. But since we're about out of time, real quickly, just a last question, kind of a fun question. Tell me about one of your favorite past bosses.
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, as I mentioned, my skills outside of the restaurant industry are in fine dining. I've done everything in a restaurant you can imagine, except chef and sous chef, bartend, line cook, bus, serve, you name it. Um, and I'd have to say my favorite day job boss is probably the one I have right now, Joe DeStefano at Gadotti's in Park City. Uh, Great manager. And I've actually started taking notes on how he manages, so that once I have a full staff on my startup, I can kind of bring some of the same vibe he brings to Gadotti's where I work. Just because I've never worked at another restaurant that legitimately, a lot of companies use family as a euphemism for working unpaid hours because peer pressure. But Gadotti's isn't like that at all for me. You really do feel a draw to the place. It's the sort of place like I could see myself being a regular there long after I no longer work there, just because I have great memories associated with the crew in specific. And I think a lot of that environment can be owned up to Joe fostering it from the day he came in about 4 years ago.
Oh, cool. Well, we are out of time. I wish we had more time, but before we leave, can you tell people how they can maybe connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my LinkedIn page is going to be the way to go if you have anything that's kind of upcoming and pertinent. Unfortunately, my website will be included, but it's under construction right now because my host completely changed their back end recently. So I have to get in and fix some JavaScript to make my website work.
Well, hopefully that'll be fixed. So
Yes, I'll pe- pending.
well, again, we appreciate you taking the time to be on, and we appreciate your insights. And this is Keith Weaver with the Top Executive Strategy Podcast. And for more insights and to follow us, you can follow us at Weaver Business Coaching. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And you can obviously listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. And we wish you the best success.